is from Paris Match. John Vanuka is from the International Herald Tribune. Ana Navarro Pedro is from Visao. And Craig Capitas is a journalist and author. Now, there's less than 2 months to go now until the French vote in the first round of their presidential election, and it's now narrowed to a two-horse race, a straight battle between Nicolas Sarkozy on the right and François Hollande on the left. Well, the socialist leader sought to seize back the initiative this week. He announced plans to double the top tax rate and bring in a 75% tax on earnings above €1 million.
Taxpayers will still have to pay their taxes in France. I would introduce this measure for moral reasons. It's not about penalising people. I'm just asking those who pocket 100 times the minimum wage to understand that there are limits, and maybe they shouldn't be paying themselves that much.
Well, President Nicolas Sarkozy attacked that policy. He said it would force entrepreneurs and entertainers alike to leave the country in droves. Well, Sarkozy had a tough week himself, though. He was mobbed by left-wing militants and Basque separatists during a tour of Bayonne in the southwest this week. However, he says he's undeterred.
Ici, nous sommes en France.
We are in France, and the French president will go wherever he wants in the French Republic. And if there's a minority of louts, then they can get lost. In 5 years, I've never bowed down to the pressure of the streets, and I will certainly not start now for Basque separatists.
C'est certainement pas pour commencer ici, devant des indépendantistes basques.
The President of the Republic, a little put out there, to say the least. Now, Craig, this call from Hollande for a 75% tax on millionaires, people in the United States would be horrified about that, wouldn't they? But here in France, they seem to quite like it. 61% of them like it, according to Sofres.
Well, you know, the truth of Sarko, he's occasionally right, even when he's wrong. People will leave. A lot have already left for Belgium, and more will leave, particularly the entertainers and the entrepreneurs. I think Hollande is grandstanding. I think that Regis, you must tell me this. The thing about this Sarko event down there, which I just find so fascinating, was he used a word, expiration. He said that, épuration. Now, épuration, as I understand it, we all know it means to purify, but as I understand it, this was a term that is a word that shouldn't really be used here, because it was used after World War II, where they were going to purify many of the people who were collaborators, and it also had other connotations. And he said in his little speech that Hollande intended to purify the civil service and the government of anyone who did not follow his socialist leanings. Now, my question is this: was I as influenced by this word as the rest of the French public, or am I making a mountain out of the molehill over his use of this word?
Well, it's a term he returns to again and again. He used it about the racaille.
That's right. He did that before.
He talked about cleansing more with the racaille, with the car share, the use of the car share. That's not exactly the same. Épuration is different because it's a very strongly connotated word.
It is.
It actually is historically is used to show the period that started after the D-Day and ended up maybe a year after, from June to June, and in which a number, between 10,000, 20,000 French supposedly collaborators, because they were not all collaborators, were executed. So it's a very dark area within the French society. Women were shaved, and it goes back. So there's a strong connotation, and using it in order to say my opponent is going to clean the civil servant, the top civil servant, meaning all the people I've nominated and that were serving under me are going to get wiped out by Hollande is a bit too far-fetched. I think it's really going too far, and there's obviously, this shows that there is an escalation in the wording of this campaign, which is worrisome, I would say, but
it has become quite personal, even though neither candidate uses the other one's name. Hollande refers to Sarkozy as the outgoing candidate. But Anna, is it becoming something of a class struggle here?
No, it's becoming a festival of blunders by the main candidates. You can see that they come out with suggestions like the 75% tax bracket for millionaires or the word d'épuration. It was not set up with the spin doctors. It was not, studied within their parties or their with their counselors. It does seem that they are losing their nerves every day, and they know that the candidate that will be elected in France will not be the favorite, will be the less hated one or the less detested one. And so this is the situation right now. And so they are losing their nerves, actually. And, they are just going in for the extra, not the extra mile, but the extra word.
And what must be extremely galling for Sarkozy is that you've got the latest poll out today, IFOP poll, that says Hollande is considered more credible on the economy, more credible at creating jobs, more credible at reducing the public debt. this is the guy talking about
He's
spending,
petting the French on the right side,
Hollande is an exaltation of larks, and Sarko is a minority of louts. It's really fun to watch.
But seriously, somebody's got their maths wrong somewhere, haven't they?
Yeah.
What do you think of it all, John, this campaign?
Well, the first one I saw was between Georges Pompidou and after de Gaulle's death and Alain Poher. So I go back. I think this is the dullest, perhaps the very, very least interesting of any that I've seen.
Yeah.
And the reason is this. The reason is that no one, in my mind, is debating, let's say, three of the real gut issues in this country. Let me take it rapidly. This week you had a big event in Europe, or at least a big event to me. That was the Dutch saying, we can't make the deficit and debt levels that the new Europe of austerity is going to require. That says to me, there's no way in hell that this finely administered country, meaning the Netherlands, is going to admit the problems that face them, and France is going to succeed and fly right over it. Nobody has really gotten into the issue of growth and how France is going to reconvert its economy. I think it's a false debate. No one has dealt with the issue at the core of a lot of people's lives who live here. I hear about it, the presence of Muslims, the Muslims community. There's a terrific book out about, put it this way, the encapsulation of various communities in the Paris area where the rule is halal and not the rule of the Republic.
This
is completely buried. No, but the real debate, what do we do, is buried. And just as the debate, there's no debate about the role of France in the world. I heard before that it's a new world in the 21st century. I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I'd say if there is a real multipolarity existent, Europe has fallen from it since the beginning of the crisis. Europe doesn't count anymore. How does France continue as a presence in the world? None of this is being discussed.
Right, the issues have all gone a bit 1970s, haven't they? It seems to be very much dominated by tax, just tinkering with the tax system on right and left. Do you agree the main issues have been left off the agenda?
Well, it's true, and there's I agree with what you just said about John. John. It's okay. I agree with the fact that the suburbs are not taken into consideration for one simple reason, is that there's a very few voting turnout in the suburbs. So as long as they can avoid the subject, they're going to avoid it. Marine Le Pen has, thrived, over the subject of immigration. So of course she's going to try to pull this and to make it a competition with at least three or four.
She, by the way, still hasn't got the signatures she needs, has she?
Yeah, she said today that she still lacks 48 signatures.
So she might not be in the race anyway.
I think she's agitating everything in order to, but I mean, I can't imagine the National Front not being in that election, honestly. There would be a parody of democracy and Sarkozy. I mean, the one who's going to pay for that is going to be Sarkozy.
Well, I was going to say,
if
she doesn't make it through, surely her votes would go to Sarkozy rather than Hollande on the left.
Well, I think that a lot of people would sanction him, and don't forget that the legislative election will happen right after the presidential election, and this is a way for the National Front people to take revenge if Marine Le Pen is not on the ballot. But some of the it's true. It's narrowing to. Basic things. It's narrowing to taxes. It's narrowing to who's going to give more sugar than the other. It's really about that. I mean, when I said Hollande is petting the people, in the sense of, they're brushing him in the right sense. Why? Because there's France is not is a Catholic country. Money is taboo, and looking at the rich, it's not like America. In America, you look, you want to be rich. Not in France. You when you become rich, you avoid even saying your numbers and how much you're making. So in France, when you take tax the rich, is something. You strike a chord. No matter if that guy, no matter if a lot of people within the 61% of the French that say they agree with what Hollande has said are going to be plundered by Hollande's tax system, because we all know that the socialists are going to go high on taxes. That's not the problem. They say tax the rich. Oh, yeah, I want to tax the rich. So this is populist measures. These are things that are going to be thrown, like Sarkozy went all over, his 2007 campaign, try to use the same tricks, work more, earn more, So we heard those things all over again, and it's going to be
it's ideological, isn't it?
Yeah, but as you said, it's going to be the least disliked. And I'm sorry, but Sarkozy has a huge way to go and very little time now.
Yeah.
And really, on top of it, it's true. No one is addressing the real issues that are at stake right now, because no one has the answer, and no one can change the way France is run. For one thing, because there is a huge, to start with international scene, there is a huge shift transfer of power from west to east right now. Europe is dealing in the way we've seen with the Eurozone crisis, with the single currency crisis. We are seeing a shift of transfer of power that doesn't say its name, that is quite hidden, from all capitals in the Eurozone to Brussels. We are seeing that with the euro, no one can use monetary policy, no one can use interest rates, no one can use really an independent policy in order to change what is done in a country. So how could they come in front of the French and say that I'm going to do some expansionary policy within industry, or I'm going to do some sort of Keynesian policy and, putting the state investment in big infrastructure, so I will give jobs to people. No one can do that. Really, Europe is stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Capitalism.
Well, sorry.
Go.
Right there. We've got to move on to our next, Craig. Apologies. You're going to like this one, though. I know it, Craig. We're going to another exercise in democracy, the battle for the Republican Party nomination in the United States. And you've got to feel a bit sorry for Mitt Romney. To many, he's the obvious candidate, but he just can't seem to convince the voters he's the man for the job. Well, that was glaringly obvious this week in Michigan. It should have been an easy bet. Romney was born there. His father was state governor, and he himself won the state back in 2008. But no, Romney was forced to campaign hard, and even then he only managed a narrow victory over social conservative Rick Santorum. Less of a victory then, more of a narrowly avoided disaster.
We didn't win by a lot, but we won by enough, and that's all that counts. There are a lot of people who are saying that if you're running for office, you really can't speak honestly to the American people. Well, we did, and I will.
Craig, I promise I'll come to you. Why can't the Republicans just rally for Romney?
I must correct you. It's not an exercise in democracy in America. It's an exercise in theocracy and lunacy. The American presidential Republican candidate race is really turned out to an argument over, how many of Romney's sons can dance on the head of a pin. You have, Santorum bringing up all of this absolutely onerous all these onerous arguments about women's reproductive rights, and they're trying. Bill Keller, a former editor of the New York Times, the other day commented that Santorum is attempting to create a Sharia law for America, and I think there's a lot of truth to his little squib. It's really depressing to watch.
Right. And John, whoever comes out of this contest alive, i.e. the man to lead the Republicans, is going to be exhausted by the time he has to fight for the White House, isn't he? I mean, we've had 20 live debates already.
Things change rapidly in American politics. The public's attention span is 10 to 15 seconds. You get something going, and what happened yesterday is a blank forever. Look at the Democratic situation 4 years ago. Obama won early. He was an activist. Let's get out of Iraq. The right war is Afghanistan. Obama lost the last 14 primary elections in succession. Friends of Hillary will tell you if the primaries had lasted 3 weeks longer, she would have been the nominee. In the middle, Obama became a centrist, told John McCain, the surge in Iraq succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. I would not say in the middle of March what's going to happen in the middle of May, in the middle of June, or as we get toward primary time. We could have a very different set of circumstances. And Romney, who's a fool every other day, might be a fool only on once a week by then.
Romney is a fundamentally flawed candidate.
He's made a few gaffes, hasn't he, Craig?
I think it goes beyond that. There's a concept in American politics that goes back to the pre-Nixon days. Now I'm showing my age. There was a group of people known as Rockefeller Republicans, and one of the princes of Rockefeller Republicanism was Mitt Romney's father, George Romney, who was the governor of Michigan, and Romney's mother, by the way, also ran for Senate there, and she lost. For a whole bunch of reasons we won't go into, Nixon ended the concept of Rockefeller Republicanism. Mitt Romney is a Rockefeller Republican, but his handlers are not letting him be what he really is. They're trying to cleave this guy so he appeals to this base.
Is it the first time in a Republican campaign we've seen someone getting hammered for being rich, basically? I mean, when he says things like, I like to fire people and I'm unemployed as well to those folks in Florida, he's distancing himself, isn't he? But that used to be an admirable policy in America, didn't it?
Mitt actually believes these things. I mean, truly, I got to know him during the Salt Lake Olympics quite well. This is a spin out of his Mormon faith, which is the American religion. Everything is positive. Everything is good. Remember, Mormonism in the scale of religions is a very, very young religion, right? Mm-hmm. But it is the American religion. And this kind of spirit that he brings to it, there's this ice cream and candy and smiles, and we don't drink coffee and we don't drink alcohol. This is the spirit he's bringing to it. So for him, it's just terrific that his wife drives not one, but 2 Cadillacs. Right. And he honestly means it when he says he'd like everyone to do that.
All right. And I'm sorry, we have run out of time. I was just going to mention, don't forget to join us on Wednesday. We'll be analysing all the results from Super Tuesday. We'll see how Mitt Romney does in that. But now, unfortunately, we've run out of time. Ana Navarro-Pedro, Craig Kapitas, John Vinuka, and Regis Le Sommier, thank you very much indeed to you all for joining us. Thanks to you for watching. That's it. This has been The World This Week.